anybody. Hello, if you guys are in the chat room seeing me and hearing me now, and if we are live right now, are we live now? Yeah. Yeah, good, because I was just making some jokes to the audience saying I'm quite ready for another adventure. But here we are. There's Justin floating around the room a bit. I do like those rosy, orangey gels on the lights. That is very, very nice indeed. Hey, everybody in the chat room is North Runner, Emily, Sarah, Hannah. Hello, lovely Hannah, and all of our lovely friends in our lovely audience. Much better than being an ugly audience. You guys are a lovely audience, and I give you extra credit, an extra gold star for being a particularly good-looking audience. You sure are. Such a good-looking bunch of people you are out there. I know it. It's just something I've met all you guys at conventions. The best-looking, most creative people are Tolkien fans. I don't know what that is, I think. I've never, and I'll get on this subject with Justin later when he comes back into the room, but I have never seen a contingent of Tolkien fans who, fell out of the ugly tree and hit every stick on the way down. I just see very healthy, good-looking. That's just the way it is. Tolkien fans, we got it. We got what's going on, and we got it good. Hello, everybody. I'm sweet-talking my audience just a little bit before we start the show. Yes, I am. I am sweet-talking my audience because I have to spend a moment telling the Twitterverse that the show is live now on Ustream, TheOneRing.net, or on YouTube at TheOneRing.net, or right here on shopxsn.com. But you'll see us live. Mainly, the best place to find us is at TheOneRing.net/live, with partnered streams also on Ustream and other platforms. We'll get to that later on. Hello, welcome ladies and gentlemen to the show. Our live stream talking about J.R.R. Tolkien and the fantasy worlds and greater mythologies and greater considerations about the works and the wonderful impact of J.R.R. Tolkien on fandom and on the world at large. This is TheOneRing.net. We call ourselves TORN as an acronym. Hello, Mr. Justin, floating around the room. We're going to talk about Numenor today and the fact that it was really the lost continent of Atlantis. Yes, we're going to talk about Atlantis. We're going to talk about the Disney movie Atlantis, The Lost Empire, the whole thing, the whole thing. We're going to talk about the fact that that was Leonard Nimoy that was in Atlantis as the great old wise Gandalf figure. The Dumbledore figure of that movie was actually Leonard Nimoy in a wonderful vocal part. We're going to talk about Numenor because it is a dark, interesting, deeply, deeply, deeply tragic adventure and a compact little storyline that sits on a shelf by itself in Tolkien's universe. In fact, it's all wrapped up in a nice pretty box with a bow on it. And one of the best things about exploring the Akalabeth, which is found at the back of the Silmarillion, right here, this lovely book, the Silmarillion. The Akalabeth is the chapter about Numenor, and Justin, I think he hasn't read The Hobbit, but he's read the Silmarillion, I think. And he's read The Lord of the Rings, but not The Hobbit. So he's one of those odd Tolkien birds, Mr. Justin, who hasn't read the obvious, but he's gone to the high-end pickings. But when you talk about Numenor, you can pull it off the shelf. It is such a self-contained story in an interesting way, probably because the geology of the land was separate from the rest of Middle-earth, and it was separate from Valinor. It was separate from everything. It was this beautiful, beautiful island continent. And I wrote a great deal about it in a Green Books article, going back in time. And I'm going to put this right here in the Twitterverse. There it is, Numenor. There it is, bam, tweet. Boom. Now the Twitterverse is wide awake and aware of what's happening right now. And I'm glad you guys are here with us on the discussion. Okay? Yes, I love Atlantis. And the fact is that J.R.R. Tolkien loved Atlantis as well. Responding to the live chat room, I've got lots of people here with us. We have a Torn hotline. Join this show and be part of this organic experience with us today. I encourage all the boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, Hobbit lads and lasses, all you Hobbity, nice, beautiful people out there, join our show because we've got a hotline. You can be texting messages, you can call. We've got Skype. Skype will be open. We can take Skype calls, but we'll get to that later in the show. We're going to begin by telling the Twitterverse in a bigger framework that Professor Tolkien was a unique writer among other late 20th century writers He stands out as one of the most unique writers, Tolkien does, for many reasons. He was a philologist. He studied languages. Not only did he study, he went like manic into his own fandom of languages and became a philologist, which is the ultimate expression. You know, they have a new phrase for that. They don't call them philologists anymore. They call them phonetic wizards. There's in that interesting film.
Philology is the study of Uncle Phil from The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
No, it's not. Listen to you, you tacky boy. Professor Tolkien was a unique author because he was interested in creating new mythologies in a new framework that was completely supported by the linguistics at its core that he bothered to invent himself, including alphabet systems that he invented himself. Remarkable what this man did.
Pete wants to make some Pillsbury fudge brownies, so please
Bring
invent.
Bring it.
I want brownies.
I would never say no
Send
to
brownies
any homemade lembas bread, brownies, cookies,
to TheOneRing.net.
hobbity snacks. We'd love it.
Meltdown Comics,
Never say no to that.
Hollywood, California.
These folks have made some of the best shortbread, really beautiful shortbread recipes that you guys come up with.
I want Pillsbury.
Well,
fudge
the
brownies.
lembas ends up being an equivalent to a shortbread. That's what the lembas is. But the brownies, yes. Pete, no doubt.
Hey,
Let's
before
do
you
that.
go jump into your conversation.
Yeah, but we're going to tell the big news stories of the day before we go into the big talk
Well,
about
I did-
Atlantis.
hey,
But
boys are stupid, huh? We have some people in the chat room that were like, boys are stupid.
I wouldn't want to side onto that argument one way or another about whether boys are stupid. You know what? That paradigm, that was an argument that I had, on the playground when I was 6, but not anymore.
But they still are.
Are they?
You may not have the argument anymore, but they still are. Boys don't change.
Oh, really?
Girls don't change it. Actually, girls change their mind all the time. No, people don't change. Boys are always stupid. Don't you think?
There has got to be a way for me to safely get out of this. I have to safely get out of this now. I have to extricate myself from this.
Okay. So are there
and get on with the show.
Are there any instances in Middle Earth Legendarium of hard breakups?
Hard breakups. Oh, I see. That kind of boys are stupid. Okay, yeah, all right. Look.
There isn't really. There's love, lorn, but they never connect. Like there's no breakups in Middle Earth. Tolkien's not teaching us important.
The biggest love affairs in Tolkien's legends end tragically through warfare and strife and a lot of ugliness. So the fact is that Aragorn and Arwen had a successful love affair. Everything in the movie about this pretend breakup where Viggo Mortensen pretends to give her back the necklace, the Evenstar pendant, and pretends to break up with her, and then goes off and starts looking upways and sideways at Éowyn, that was all BS, because that never happened in the books, ever. That never happened in the books. It happened in the movies, but not in the books. But I don't know about...
It wasn't a breakup.
No, it wasn't a breakup. I don't remember any particular breakups or divorces of note in Professor Tolkien's mythology. He was so, background of Roman Catholicism in his belief systems that there were hardly any mention of divorces. They don't have divorces, and Catholics don't do that, and they didn't do it in Middle Earth either. So are you kidding me? You've got to be kidding me, guys. Anyways, what I was saying was that before the show gets completely hijacked by Justin's line of inquiry, I was saying that Professor Tolkien was a unique author because he wanted to invent all these new mythologies, but there was one instance...
But he never had a breakup. He married his childhood sweetheart.
There was one instance where his mythologies actually intersected with one of our own in our real world. And one of our mythologies has always been the lost continent of Atlantis.
There's only 7
That's very unusual.
Of men in the world.
That's the end of my thought. I did have to finish my sentence before I let Justin railroad me. So that's the end of the sentence. The idea is that Tolkien was an interesting author to...
Today. We should talk about relationships and why some end in tragedy and what is considered tragedy.
That is not the show that I prepared for today, and that is not the show that I've researched, and that is not the show that the Twitterverse is...
Don't you think it's top of mind, though? There's something going in the air where a lot of people are breaking up right now.
No.
You don't think so?
I am
Okay.
not. The big news today is that one of Tolkien's unpublished works that we've been waiting for forever is finally available on sale.
Well, I thought
Big
it was,
headlines.
I thought it was available
The
last
story of
6
Kullervo
months ago.
was an early press release 6 months ago, and it was available for pre-order. It was available for pre-order 6 months ago, but now,
Oh, it was published in the UK.
yes, and it within the UK
That's a
pre-orders
big difference. Why did it take? Did they do an American translation?
on sale in America. I don't know, but you know what? The publishing world is a bit of an odd thing. They have fiefdoms, and they try to control each other's sales numbers in certain territories around the world. It's the same reason why DVDs and Blu-rays have Region 1, Region 4, Region
Books
2.
have
'cause-
regions now.
yeah,
Actually, they
that
did.
that explains.
Actually,
that
some of Tolkien's
we will-
most controversial notes came from the German version. Because he supported the German version of Lord of the Rings. And
Yeah,
it's at some of those fan meetups.
Different publishers control different rights in different territories for weird reasons. It's very true. So
that man?
the chat room, several individuals in the chat room are screaming to not have the show hijacked to talk about boys and girls breaking up.
Well,
but
look, he's
we're going to
a-
talk about
he's
Numenor.
he
We
was
are
going
going to
make-
talk about
he was
Numenor
gonna
and
talk
Atlantis.
and
it's gonna be a good show.
Brownies,
It's gonna
now
be
he
a
wants
really
to
good
talk
show.
about that mean and terrible husband at the end of the sill. Milrillion.com.
I love we're going to get the news headlines out of the way. If you want to get your hands on the story of Kullervo, then bam, you North American audience out there, and I know I have a worldwide international audience, of course, but you folks who are here in North America, you good-looking Tolkien fans, I've been buttering you up for the past half an hour.
Butter.
Yeah, it's lots of butter. Well, we've been on the air about 20 minutes, and
Salted butter.
no, that's been a lot of sugar. I've been giving you guys
Did you hear
spoonfuls
the-
of sugar
did
today.
you see the big news?
Get your hands on Kullervo. It's really dark, it's really weird and tragic, but you're going to love it. It's more Tolkien, so it's fresh, it's new. Haven't had our hands on this in forever.
Big news.
Big news from Mr. Justin.
No, not from me, from Mr. Sean Astin. He's
Ah.
announced that his mother, Patty Duke, her
Yes.
funeral will be open to the public.
Oh,
She
wow.
The
Wow.
family has
The
decided-
memorial is open to the public?
the
Wow,
family
that's
has
extraordinary.
decided to make it a worldwide grieving process, and it's funny. If you go to our Facebook page, there's
Wow,
an
that is news.
amazing video where a local reporter knocked on the door, and Sean actually went out and spoke so warmly about his mother, Patty Duke.
Yeah.
And I mean the story's incredible. I mean
I didn't know he was going to make the memorial
on the
public.
record-
That isn't quite
he's on the
interesting.
record saying that everyone told her not to have him. You don't want this boy. Like, we're talking about one of the hottest starlets, Oscar-winning starlets. She's 20-something, right?
Yes.
Years old. She gets pregnant by who knows who. She didn't even know who until the DNA test 20 years later. And
Yes, indeed. Indeed. That is.
and everyone, her managers, her agents, the studio head, they all told her, don't have this kid. And she went through with the pregnancy, and that kid was Sean Astin.
Indeed.
And boy,
Indeed.
did he change our lives.
Yes, he has, in the best way possible. And boy, was he robbed by the Academy for not getting his Oscar nomination for The Return of the King. I mean, or for The Two Towers, even. The way he carries the end of the film, the audience is in tears because of Sean Astin. And then the next year, we're all in tears again because of Sean Astin. Samwise is the heart of The Lord of the Rings. He's the true hero and the true focus of the story. And so Sean Astin carried that burden the way that Frodo carried his ring. It's all about Sean Astin.
All right,
That's
you
telling
talk
you,
about
he's
Atlantis.
awesome.
You talk about
But
whatever you
I
want.
appreciate
Here's
that
the cork. Put a
that
cork in it.
that is a really good tidbit of news to know that the public can actually go and attend the memorial services for Patty Duke. My gosh, we got rather emotional last week when we did our show in honor of Patty Duke. Excuse me. Wow, and saw the dust from the construction happening right outside the studio booth. It's been a very, very busy couple of weeks here at the network at XSN and at TheOneRing.net as well. So the other last news item, besides encouraging people who are watching our live show now, and thank you, Justin, for coming to join us and give us that extra injection of levity and extra news. go to our Facebook timeline and check out the items that we have. We're finishing up our March Madness competition, which is, like a parody, our version of Lord of the Rings fans doing a parody of the basketball grid or chart or whatever you guys call it. Like I'm so checked into March Madness. Here's the final matchup. It was brains versus beauty versus brawn versus brains, beauty, brawn, and something else. And out of all those groups, we now have the final two competitors in this final voting online contest, where all the fans can pick between Morgoth or Galadriel. That's right, Morgoth or Galadriel. Indeed. What could be a more epic battle? Beauty and brains of Galadriel facing up against the baddie and brawn of Morgoth. Yes, he was one of the baddies as well. So the final two, you can go straight to TheOneRing.net on our Facebook page or on our main website, TheOneRing.net, and absolutely check out the end of March Madness. And wow, it's been quite a year. Let's vote. Who am I going to vote for? I'm going to vote right now while I'm online at TheOneRing.net on my very own website that all the TheOneRing.net contributors and volunteers do. Let's see, who am I going to vote for? Morgoth or Galadriel? Here it is. The final, right here, guys. Who are you going to vote for, Galadriel or Morgoth? Well, let's talk to the live audience. I cannot see the live audience, and I cannot see the live chat anymore, which is too bad, because I was just about to ask the audience what I should do. You know what? Just for the heck of it, just because Morgoth, well, then again, maybe I should vote for Galadriel, because Galadriel could possibly be the first woman to actually win the champion title on our system. Okay, I'll vote Galadriel. Yeah, she's got this far and away. So she's already got 67% of the vote to Morgoth's 32. Yeah, there you go. Thank you for voting. Yep, that's that. So now, back to the conversation. The news headlines are out of the way. There you are. That's nice. Nice to see you guys. I want to encourage the voting to all of our viewers in Wisconsin today. Stop watching the show, hang up the phone, get to your polling place and vote. Get it? Get it. Get it, okay? All you good-looking voters in Wisconsin out there, you wonderful good-looking Lord of the Rings fans, because in Wisconsin, they're the best-looking of the lot. All you great-looking Wisconsin cheeseheads. I love you guys. I used to live in Chicago. I was your next-door neighbor for, the better part of a decade. Wisconsinites, it's time for you to vote. So I just voted for Galadriel online, although I was tempted to vote for Morgoth just to be a contrarian. Just to be a contrarian, Justin. The exciting news headlines are now out of the way.
I don't know anything about contrarianism.
Not at all. You don't. These colors look really great on the chat. It's nice to see everyone encouraging all of our Wisconsin viewers out there to stop watching the show and go and vote tonight, right now, before polls close. Go vote in Wisconsin, and then come back and watch the show after you're done voting.
We were
okay?
talking about Middle-earth madness on TheOneRing.net.
Oh, I've already talked about that for 10 minutes. Yeah, and I tied that into the Wisconsin story. Yes. So yeah, go vote on. All the details, of course, are on our main website, and the bracket of the Middle-earth March Madness, the brackets were separated into these quadrants, okay? The baddies, the brawn, the beauty, and the brains. So those four quadrants ended up with the final two in competition being Morgoth versus Galadriel. I voted online, and you too. Now, back to the discussion about what you learn in the back pages of the Silmarillion. What do you learn? You learn about Numenor. The world has quite a bit of storytelling behind it. The world of Arda. Everybody has to think about this map. Middle-earth is way over here, okay? There's this triangular ocean, and then there's the coastline of Valinor, the ancient lands of the undying lands, as they called it, the undying lands, the uttermost west. The furthest shore, Valinor, and then this ocean, and then here Middle-earth over here on the west. I'm doing it this way so that you guys can see east and west, because that's the way you're looking at the map, in that direction. Me, obviously, I'd be looking at it in my direction, but for you guys, in the middle of this vast ocean, once upon a time, Professor Tolkien decided to inject in his own mythology building a slice of our own primary world mythology. And these instances were rare, if never. Well, it depends. A lot of analysis and a lot of scholarship has gone into that discussion over the years. But let me go back to an original article that I wrote. And it was published online in August of 2003. Go back to TheOneRing.net and look under Library, and you'll see all of our original scholarly articles. And this is one that I wrote. A lot of that scholarship and a lot of those interesting articles written by Tahanu, Anwen, Ostadan, Turgon, and myself, Quickbean. We all used our pseudonyms, and that was us. That was the whole gang doing our online magazine. Well, we had our articles combined and published in The People's Guide to Middle-earth. The People's Guide to J.R.R. Tolkien. God, I should know the title of my own book. Anyway, so you can find our articles online and in our collected volume, The People's Guide to Tolkien. And right here, we get into all these details about the Atlantis connection, a piece that I wrote. Here we go, Tolkien's version of Atlantis. This is fascinating to get into, and I'm going to get right to the nitty-gritty. This is so good, okay? I'm going to share this with you as I shared it with audiences all those years ago. The story is told in one of the final sections of the Silmarillion. It is called the Akallabeth, and represents an unusual circumstance where Tolkien deliberately brought his stories into alignment with our own world's mythology. The tale of Numenor, great island continent with its master ship builders and advanced society, is a direct parallel with our ancient legends of Atlantis. The assumption is made here that the history of Middle-earth is indeed a mythical prehistory of our own world. If you accept that conceit, that Tolkien's larger stories were actually historical accounts, filled with the shadows and victories of real-world history, then the veracity of Numenor is all the more potent when you make the Atlantis connection. Here's why Numenor and Atlantis are so similar. The denizens of both had advanced skills and sciences. Advanced skills and sciences, especially with shipbuilding. Their societies, levels of literacy, and cultures were advanced. The Numenorians were indeed representative of an advanced nature of man, as the Atlanteans were also. Tolkien gives us much to go on. Eonwe, the herald of Manwe, came among them and taught them, and they were given wisdom and power and life, more enduring than any others of mortal race have possessed. Therefore, they grew wise and glorious, and in all things more like to the firstborn, meaning the elves, the firstborn of Iluvatar, meaning the Noldorin, the elves. In all things they grew more like to the firstborn than any other of the kindreds of men, and they were tall, taller than the tallest of the sons of Middle-earth, and the light of their eyes was like the bright stars. Now, that's a direct quote from Tolkien. So much more can be said, but the real clincher is looking at the Quenya term that Tolkien invented for Numenor after it had fallen. Akallabeth, the downfallen. Atalante in the Eldarin tongue. Get it? Akallabeth in Eldarin is Atalante. Now, how much more could you ask for? Atalante equals Atlantis. Green Book's writer Ostadan, who was our languages expert, he interjects here, quote, while the legend of Numenor was not written down until the 1930s, about the time when The Hobbit was being written, the root word that forms the basis for the name Atalante was already part of Quenya before 1920. See the Quenya Lexicon Parma Elda Lambaron, issue number 12. Tolkien describes it as a curious chance that the stem of the word should so much resemble our word Atlantis. And in his published letters, number 257, and the discussion by Christopher Tolkien in the book The Lost Road, which is one of the History of Middle-earth volumes. And it is indeed hard to tell whether this is purely accidental or whether Tolkien unconsciously was influenced by the name Atlantis when he created those Quenya words so many years earlier. Thank you, Osterdan, for that interjection. Now, continuing with my article. Possibly the greatest of Greek philosophers, Plato, was provided in his dialogues. Plato was to provide in his dialogues the only original record from ancient times that mentions Atlantis. Around 360 BC, he wrote of the mighty island continent that was, quote, beyond the Pillars of Hercules, unquote, suggesting that Atlantis would be found outside the Mediterranean, in the middle of the ocean that would later bear the name Atlantic. You can find many thousands of other sources and websites with Plato's writing, a variety of viewpoints, and yes, plenty of far-out conjecture. To put it succinctly, the Atlanteans were mighty and brilliant of mind, but eventually corrupted by power. More specifically, the people were debased by complacency, while the leaders became arrogant and warlike. They made war on the nations nearest to them on the Mediterranean coast and sought to take over ancient Athens. In the end, Plato tells us, quote, there occurred violent earthquakes and floods, and in a single day and night of misfortune, all your warlike men in a body sank into the earth, and the island of Atlantis, in like manner, disappeared in the depths of the sea. Now just look at what befell Numenor. Envious of the blessed realm and greedy for an immortality that was not theirs to claim, seeking to bypass the destiny that was laid before them by Ilúvatar, the Númenóreans fell from a state of grace to utter ruin. They once shared great friendship with the elves. Yes, they once shared gifts of knowledge, skill, and agriculture with the lesser men who struggled on the mainland of Middle-earth. With great technological leaps forward and ships that carried them far and wide, they traveled the entire planet of Arda, except the one place where they could not go, Valinor. Sauron, of course. Sauron saw his chance here and corrupted the Númenóreans with lies. And I'll get further into that, beyond what I wrote in this article. The story of the Akalabeth that you get here in the Silmarillion, it gets ugly. Sauron packed up and moved to Númenor. And while he was there, he corrupted the Númenóreans so badly and influenced them, they started worshiping Sauron instead of worshiping the Valar. And there was enslavement of other men, and it was horrible, and there was blood sacrifices, and it was hideous, ghoulish. It was ghoulish where the Númenóreans went at that point, except for those few of them who stayed faithful. But now continuing here with our main story. Sauron saw his chance here and corrupted the Númenóreans with lies. When they did attempt to assail the Blessed Realm, all were killed, their ships torn asunder, and Arda, the planet, suffered a cataclysm that sunk Númenor forever. Only 9 ships survived, carrying the faithful to the mainland. For those who have not read the Akalabeth in a while, I recommend you get your copy of The Sill off the bookshelf and read it just one more time. The story is one of Tolkien's most cautionary. Just like Plato, our dear professor pulls no punches when it comes to meting out divine justice. Yet Plato takes a more threatening tone in his story. He seems to argue, quote, look what unchecked Plato seems to argue, look at what unchecked imperialism does. Behold the dream of a utopian society that cannot survive. Is it possible that a perfect community with the blessings of a society and a technology advanced beyond other men will always unravel because of human aggression? That seems a rather dark-hearted attitude, yet today, variants of this Atlantis warning are just about everywhere. Strong shades of that storyline in Krypton. Don't you think? Kal-El, son of Jor-El. A highly advanced race with the greatest minds in the galaxy becomes rotted from within by power and arrogance. The whole civilization, the whole planet, not just the island, is destroyed. Only one survivor escapes. Kal-El, son of Jor-El, he who would become Superman. For myself, I am left with some intriguing thoughts on this whole thing. Many people today still entertain the idea of Atlantis being real. Theories run amok with true believers on where/what Atlantis could have been. Was it an alien culture from outer space? Was it located in the center of the Earth? Did they develop powers of telekinesis with magic crystals? Is there any real reason Disney made that film about it? Seriously, it seems clear to me that Plato and Tolkien were doing the exact same thing. They're setting up an intriguing myth that would work as a metaphor. Yet certain myths hold a strange power over us on down through the centuries, even though they are not necessarily true. The Númenórean disaster can be directly linked with Aragorn, one of our favorite characters, Aragorn, son of Arathorn. Much of the Third Age concerns itself with the after effects of Númenórean influence. Will the bloodline survive the ages? Will the glory of Númenor be restored? As you read again, you will realize that Tolkien connects all these threads to Aragorn. The return of the king could also be read as the return of the Númenórean age. Same title, same story. Even though the Akalabeth was a nightmare of misfortune, I find the focus in The Lord of the Rings as much more positive. Much more positive. The professor does not dwell on shaking his finger at us like Plato does, saying to his readers, the destiny of man will always be misery and disaster. Tolkien is much, much more hopeful. He builds a nation under the ancient Númenórean banner. Actually, two, if you count Arnor separately from Gondor. Look at the long-standing effects of Númenor on Middle-earth, the shipbuilding, the artistry, the architecture, system of laws, not to mention the methods of cultivating corn and grapes and other crops. What did they do that was noble? What was good to be found in their society? Isn't it a shame that the old lies of Morgoth, planted so many centuries before, would cultivate such a calamity? And that was what Sauron did, cultivating Big Daddy Morgoth's original seeds that were sowed all those millennia earlier. Yet Tolkien gives it all one more chance with Aragorn. Indeed, it's true. It is a thoroughly romantic notion, but very satisfying. Aragorn brings the best qualities of Númenor back to Middle-earth. He is like a divine shot in the arm for mortal men. Indeed, the fact that he succeeds in restoring the ancient glory of Western Nessie, having such an impact on history, it makes me wonder, what would our world be like today if Atlantis had once existed? Truly, I can't help but entertain this daydream. The writer in me, just entertain this idea. Imagine if a single descendant of, like Aragorn, came to the fore on our world stage. I do not mean Prince Namor, the Submariner from the Marvel Comics, but I think in terms of Aragorn, Elisar, a man who would live longer than 200 years, possessed of a power and a wisdom that would seem alien to us. Healer of hurts, leader of men, graced with an ancient light in his eyes. If there had ever been an Atlantean civilization that mastered the earth, air, and water around them, if that bloodline were intact, can you imagine the impact that one individual would have on our world? Now, this is the very question that Tolkien demands of the people of Gondor when he puts the crown on Elisar's head. They accept him, they embrace him, and they flourish under his rule. Would we? Discuss. I'm going to let the chat room sink that in. That was the article that I wrote about 13 years ago, originally written on theonering.net and still available there in our library. Go check it out. Writing under my pseudonym, Quickbeam. I'm your host, Clifford Broadway, and I never even identified myself at the top of the show, but hello, I'm Quickbeam. Been a contributor and a writer and a host for theonering.net for about 17 years. And it's very interesting. A lot of chat, a lot of aggressive, interesting chats going on here in this chat room. It's really good to have you guys live on the show. And yeah, there you go. It's sinking in, Gandalf's filthy pipe. It's sinking in, just like Atlantis did. Haha, good one. So, Emily, Northrunner, Erovandi, all of our live chatters are here in the chat and taking part in this show. I'm going to have Skype open in just a minute so we can take more conversations from the live audience by finding Barlaman Butterbur is the online nickname for us. It's TheOneRing Net on Skype. I'm going to open that up. I don't think my battery's going to last very long, but I will open it up just in case anybody wants to chit-chat. Okay, turn on the Wi-Fi. There it is. Good, Wi-Fi is now on. And here is Skype. There you go, good stuff. And there's Skype. Make sure that is open. Okay. Yeah. Saruman allowed himself to lust after the power of the ring. I think that's the big reason he was corrupted. Yes, Eravandi, I would agree with that. Saruman is a great, great, great example of something that was originally very good, like the Númenóreans, that ended up being corrupted by Sauron. That was Sauron's influence. He did it to so many people and civilizations and characters in Middle-earth. It's amazing. All right, let's type in our Skype name and open up Skype account, TheOneRing Net. There it is. Boom. Okay, and what's the password for that? I don't even know. I don't even know. What's the password? What's the password? I'm going to have to ask Justin for that. Maybe he'll send it to me. All right, no Skype for now until I get the password from Mr. J. Okay? So, yeah, intriguing, that Atlantis, that Númenórean stuff is very intriguing to me. And I like the idea of thinking if the people of Gondor are asked by Tolkien to accept an alien in their midst, you know, a Superman in their midst, an Aragorn, who was not a regular man of Gondor. He was an actual Númenórean who was going to live hundreds of years longer than them and was taller than them and had a different, you know, DNA than them, in a way. And they followed him and they flourished. Ellen Design. I think the idea that the myth of Númenor and Atlantis are metaphors for humans' hubris would explain why those myths are so powerful and have lasted so long. Yeah, nobody needs to be reminded of their hubris except humankind. Interesting? Ellen, I'm with you 100% on that point. Other species exist on this planet. Lots. Animal, vegetable, flora and fauna, vertebrate and invertebrate, cold-blooded, hot-blooded, such biological diversity. But of all the species on the planet, who is the only one that needs to be reminded of their hubris? Us, the Homo sapiens. Only us, the ones who survived the Neanderthal and Cro-Magnon and early species split. And here we are, happily evolved to the point where we are. Hey, everyone, it's great to have Grace Under Fire. Thank you for joining us. We've been talking about Atlantis. And Numenor. We've been talking about the Numenorian mythology as a unique component of the Silmarillion, one of my favorite stories, and also really kind of badass. It is a badass story. Where are you going to find more details about Numenor? Well, you can get a whole bunch of stuff about it in Unfinished Tales. You also get a remarkable section in the Silmarillion, in the back pages of the Silmarillion, right after the Quenta Silmarillion. But before you get to the last epilogue called Of the Rings of Power and the Third Age, you've got the Calibeth on page 257 in my illustrated edition. Yep, it's right here, right here. Oh, yeah. Here it is. Wow. I just found the big part of it. Here it is. Then, but the fleets of Ar-Pharazôn, how about that? The fleets of the Numenorians moved against the menace of the West. Yeah, and they sailed right on up to where they should not have been. And they broke the ban of the Valar and sailed into forbidden seas, going up with war against the deathless, to wrest from them everlasting life within the circles of the world. Wow, how about that? And at last Ar-Pharazôn came even to Aman, the blessed realm, and the coasts of Valinor, and still all was silent, and doom hung by a thread. For this, we're talking about the king of Numenor, and their determination to betray the ban of the Valar and actually go to the blessed realm. It's all right there. And all their ships were sunk into the abyss, and so is the Numenorian continent, just like Atlantis was. And it's very, hello from Tennessee. Thank you, Retro Boy. It's so good to have you back on the show, Retro Boy. And there's Idril Calabrinda. Hello there, and hello, Ellen, and everybody here. I'm glad you guys are all logged in. Welcome to the Ustream chat. It's really great to have everybody here. So what do you guys think? Have you guys really thought that when you're watching The Lord of the Rings, every time you get to this big, beautiful, triumphant coronation, the big coronation scene where Liv Tyler shows up in that lime green dress, carrying that standard, that banner that she sewed for her hubby. And last time he saw her, he saw nasty visions in the Palantir of, Arwen dying wan and pale and ghostly and dying on the chaise lounge in Rivendell. Aragorn didn't know that she was dead or alive yet at that point. So she sneaks under the camera and shows up with her beautiful makeup and her lime green dress. Ah, that lovely moment. And everyone's just so caught up in the fact where Aragorn gets crowned by Gandalf, and Gandalf does this wonderful little short bit. Aragorn starts singing. It's beautiful, this a cappella, quiet, soft singing that is actual Numenorian dialogue in the book, The Return of the King. So Viggo is singing, and all the petals in the wind are flying. And there she is, Liv Tyler, in that beautiful outfit. And everyone's weeping, and they kiss, and it's lovely. And everyone gets so caught up in all this stuff that happens. And then even the bit at the end, where Viggo says to Frodo and the other three hobbits, "My friend, you bow to no one." And then the king bows to the hobbits. And it's so triumphant, and Howard Shore's music swells, and the audience is crying, and get your Kleenex. It's so beautiful, I love it. It's crying and weeping. I've been weeping for 25 minutes now in The Return of the King. I've been weeping for the past 35 minutes even. I mean, God, I do nothing but cry in The Return of the King, because I'm a softie for that movie. You are too, you're a softie. But you just stop to think about it. Everyone's so distracted by all these beautiful and vividly photographed, beautiful, beautiful moments in the coronation scene. But you ever stop to think about what's really going on? These people in Gondor have just instated a guy from Atlantis into their realm. Yep. To them, it's not mythology anymore. It's real. To them. They just took a guy who is an alien from Atlantis, or he's from the bloodline of Atlantis even, if you get what I'm saying. And they reinstate, instead of the old government that they had with the warden of the state, who would be Denethor, who was just a warden, the steward of Gondor, who got a lecture from Gandalf and didn't like hearing to be put in his place. You know, the power is not given to the steward of Gondor. La 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 la. So you get to that end of the coronation sequence, and you stop and think, he's from Atlantis. He's from Numenor. You know, Aragorn, who's our wonderful new hero, who's been our hero through all of these books, we've been trotting through the wilderness and running away from ring wraiths all this time, going down through mountains and facing down orcs, and they have a cave troll, and facing down everybody, and even Boromir. And maybe that's one of the reasons why Boromir in the Fellowship of the Ring has such a weird flinching against Aragorn coming to take the throne away from his father, the steward of Gondor, because it represents the dissolution of a society or a policy, a level of head of state, and even statesmanship, a national identity even, which is now Atlantean or Numenorian. Now, so how would that happen in our world? How would we think about it if a Kryptonian, you know, the same kind of philosophical questions are being asked by Zack Snyder in Batman vs. Superman. He's asking with the character that's played by the good Senator Holly Hunter. And it's like, you know, how would we react if Aragorn was instated as king and he's not even our race? He's a different race from a different continent that's sunk in the ocean from Atlantis centuries and centuries ago. So, but the people of Gondor do it, and they flourish under him and under his wisdom and under his guidance, and it's a good thing for them. So I'm not sure that our world would do the same. I'm really not sure that our world would do the same. Yes, now back to the live chat. Yes. I like how Tolkien did it in the book. Somebody, Prince of Dol Amroth, asked the people of Minas Tirith if they would accept Aragorn as their king. And Aragorn refused to enter Minas Tirith except to heal Faramir and Éowyn until he was accepted. That's right. Yeah, you're right, Pete. You're right, Pete. That is an additional layer of thought. That's exactly what Tolkien wrote in the book. I agree 100% with that. Yeah, that's very good. The people of Gondor were not even asked until the appropriate time, and Aragorn would assume no token of power, and he would accept the scepter of Enumenos, you know, his scepter, his crown. He would accept the elements that define his station and his royalty and his claim until after the appropriate time happened. Yeah, interesting. Yes. Yes, indeed, it was. Intriguing. So I love talking about this Atlantis connection to Numenor, and it has very decently filled up the first hour. We talked about some of our news headlines and talk about Atlantis. I do need to text Mr. Justin and say, hey, buddy, hey, he better answer me, because I totally want to get this password for Skype. And I have no battery power. All my batteries are dying on my phone, on my tablet, blah, 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 blah. And if I lose power, we can't Skype. But I do want to turn the device on at least and get you lovely folks to join me live on this conversation. All right, Justin, what is our Skype password for TheOneRing.net? I do not know. It's probably some secret Quenya Elvish word from thousands and thousands of years ago that I don't even know. But I do wonder. Okay. All right, Mr. Justin. All right, hey, what is our torn Skype password? No, not pass speed. Please and thank you. That's how you do it. Please and thank you. That's Mr. Justin Sewell, ladies and gentlemen, my producer, who's behind the scenes. He can hear me. I mean, if he's just listening to me on the microphone. Hey, Omar, if you're listening, if anybody's monitoring me, I would love to have the Skype password for TheOneRing.net. Let's have it. You guys let me know right away. Hey, and Emily, nice to see you too in the live chat room. Maria versus Snyder has a website. Check it out. It shows all of her books and the order that they go in. And there are many stories on the website too. I'll have to check that out, Emily, definitely. Right, they were Numenorians. Yes, Ellen, talking about what they did up in Arnor. So, and Elendil and Isildur are the ones who brought the White Tower to Gondor? Yes. Yeah, maybe you can Skype, Hannah. Of course you can Skype if you'd like to do that, but I don't have the password to get into it yet. Northrunner, Pete, says, Ellen, I think that Aragorn may have been descended from northern kings, so some people may... Ah, here it is. Oh, I should have known. I should have known that's what the password was. Boom. Boom. Signing in to Skype before my device dies. When my tablet dies, then we can't do Skype anymore. All right, there it is. We're online. Barnum and Butterbird, The One Ring. Thank you, Justin. TheOneRing.net is on Skype. We're live right now. You can text us on our live chat line. You can Skype if you'd like. Oh, Skype just crashed. Let's start it again. Okay. Oh, the V isn't versus. Oh, sorry. Okay. Right, V is her middle name, like a middle initial V. Got it. Oh, see? Now, Idril Celebrindle. Oh, look who's here.
Hello.
There's Emily on the show. Hey, everybody, look, it's Emily live on TheOneRing.net. Hey, how are you doing there, my dear?
Yeah. No, it's Maria V. Snyder, as in V for middle name.
Got it. I just said that.
Yeah.
Yes, I just said that while you were calling. Yeah? V, the middle initial.
She's
Yeah.
my favorite. The way she writes, it just seems so real. Yeah.
No, indeed. Yeah, I gotta.
Whenever I read her books, I just feel all the emotions of the characters.
Oh, absolutely. That sounds cool. A good recommendation from Emily. Hey, everybody out there in the chat world. Here's Emily talking to us live from England in the very, very dark wee hours of the night. And hey there, how are you, my dear?
AM.
It's in the way wee hours of the morning. So I love looking at the chat room. I can see so many lively conversations about the descendant, the line of heritage and the line of relationships between Aragorn and the Númenóreans and the northern kingdoms. It's so cool that we've got a lot of Tolkien fans who know their details as well as they should. Hardcore, good-looking Tolkien fans know their stuff. It's very good. So have you read Unfinished Tales? Have you read The Silmarillion?
No, I haven't. Most I've done is listen to the audiobook of The Hobbit.
Oh, yeah, that's good.
Otherwise,
But you haven't read any of the stuff about Númenor or Unfinished Tales or The Silmarillion yet.
No.
Well, you have a whole great, wonderful world to explore. Hey, Pussycat, how you doing there? Oh, show the world that guy right there. Hey, back on Skype?
His name's Shadow.
Oh, his name is Shadow. Say hello, Shadow. Shadow Cat. Shadow says, hey, I can see the camera, but I can't see the catnip. Where's the catnip? Nice. That's awesome. Yeah, and Eravandi, I'm really glad that Eravandi's pointing out. For those of you, like you, my dear Emily, who have yet to foray into the world of the Silmarillion, which I happen to have in my hands right here. See this lovely book? This is the edition you want because it has all the beautiful illustrations and drawings in it. It's gorgeous. But
Well, I have got the annotated Hobbit.
I love that too. That's my favorite version of The Hobbit. My friend Douglas Anderson annotated that. He's awesome. But Eravandi is pointing out that you can check out the web series Torn Book Club, where our buddy Josh did a fantastic series walking everybody through and talking people through the Silmarillion and all of its dense mythologies and details. So, yep, I'm out of power. Sorry, my Skype just died. Sorry, Emily. It was lovely to chat with you here, Emily. Nice to have you on Skype. But my battery power is dead on my poor tablet. So that was really nice. But I can't do any more Skype because my tablet is refusing to obey. So there you go. Boom. All right, how about that? So back to the chat room. Yes, definitely check out the Torn Book Club series. And they're very, very, very informative. And hi, Shadow Cat. That was nice to see Emily and the Shadow Cat. Just ignore that time the chat started talking about sparkly elf poop that one time. Eravandi, are you telling me, seriously, sparkly elf poop became... Did you guys really get hijacked just as easily on Torn Book Club as I got hijacked by Justin sitting here next to me about an hour ago? Number one rule of Torn Book Club is that the chat is squirrel. Yes, easily distracted like like the dog in the Pixar movie Up. Yes. All right. Time to bring an iPad charger. Yes, yes. And Ellen, you're right. It's not an iPad, it's a Galaxy S tab, but I do need to bring my charger with me. You are so right. So very, very right. And when you're right, you're right. You are indeed. Yes. Yeah, Button Lady. I love it when Button Lady joins the live chats. She doesn't come here on Torn Tuesday as often as she was seen as a denizen of the Sunday Torn Book Club grouping. Now, let's get another element of Numenorian mythology out of the way. And what's intriguing to me is that it could be such a great standalone film. If I know that they're not going to make the Silmarillion into a movie. I know they don't have the rights to it. Everybody knows they don't have the rights to it, but even if they made it into a TV series and there were like 6 or 7 seasons, it might take 7 whole TV seasons to get through the Silmarillion and get through it properly and to cover the vast material. But when Justin and I had a chit-chat one year on Torn Tuesday about how many feature films could be pushed out of this book, The Silmarillion, this is amazing, this book. And the question was, how many movies do you think you could eke out of this book? We ended up with 7 in a franchise, crazy tentpole franchise for The Silmarillion. But instead of doing 7 feature films, I really think the option of doing a television series would be so groovy and quite suitable for that material. But the Akalabeth itself would comprise, in my mind, in my imaginings, the story of Numenor and the tragedy of Numenor would just be an entire single season. And we wouldn't go to any other lands of Beleriand or Valinor. Well, of course, we'd have to go to Valinor, in that season. But I'm telling you, the Silmarillion would be like the Silmarillion season by season. You'd go through 5 seasons, maybe 6. And when you get to the 7th season, you just leave all those other familiar places behind and just focus that entire season and every episode in it focused entirely on Numenor. And then you wrap it all up with the 8th season, which would introduce us to Of the Rings of Power and the Third Age. And we'd learn something about Sauron's mischief, disguising himself as Anatar, the Lord of Gifts, and betraying the elves and teaching them the art of ring making all these magic, powerful rings, and then betraying them and making his own master ring behind the scenes. Meanwhile, it's all right here. How the exiles of Numenor established their realms in Arnor and in Gondor, but ere many years had passed, it became manifest that their enemy, Sauron, had also returned. He came in secret, as has been told, to his ancient kingdom of Mordor, beyond the Ifelduath, the Mountains of Shadow, and that country marched with Gondor upon the east. There, above the valley of Gorgoroth, was built his fortress, vast and strong, Barad-dûr, the Dark Tower, and there was a fiery mountain in that land that the elves named Orodruin. Indeed, for that reason, Sauron had set there his dwelling long before, for he used the fire that dwelt there. He used the fire that welled there from the heart of the earth in his sorceries and in his forging. And in the midst of the land of Mordor, he had fashioned the ruling ring. There now he brooded in the dark until he had wrought for himself a new shape. And it was terrible, for his fair semblance had departed forever when he was cast into the abyss at the drowning of Numenor. And that would be all part of one complete season of the Silmarillion TV show. And then here, this would be the final season of Silmarillion, where you read of the Rings of Power and the Third Age. Getting this little juicy selection out of the way, let me finish this up, because this is good stuff. He took up again the great ring, and clothed himself in power, and the malice of the eye of Sauron, few even of the great among elves and men could endure. Now Sauron prepared war against the Eldar and the men of Western Nessie, and the fires of the mountain were wakened again. Yep, that's right. So good. And he stoked the fires and made his ruling ring, and thus began the Third Age of the world, yeah. And here's the story of the host of Gil-galad. You know, wow, this is amazing. It's all about the last alliance of elves and men. So this last alliance of elves and men is shown in the opening prologue of the movie, The Fellowship of the Ring. And even though Peter Jackson and New Line Cinema, hey there, how you doing? Even though Peter Jackson did not have the rights to this book, The Silmarillion, Peter Jackson had the rights to the appendix, the appendices, multiple, plural, that are at the back of The Return of the King. And they also overlap and talk in same sentences, or in some, not the same sentences, but in similar threads of story, tell all that bit about the last alliance of elves and men. So even though he didn't have the Silmarillion, Peter Jackson was able to talk about the last alliance and all these references to Numenor because they're actually mentioned in the back pages of The Lord of the Rings, where they did have the license for that material. So, yeah. Oh, Erevandius saying, I tried to watch the Chronicles of Shannara. I really did. I just couldn't get into it. Wow, the Sword of Shannara. The Elfstones of Shannara, rather. And I'm reading very carefully what I've got here with all these live people are with us here every Tuesday. It's great to have such a robust chat room. Really nice bunch of chatters. That's right. Legend of the Seeker? Ooh. Legend of the Seeker. Yeah, that was pretty good, Emily. Yeah, that was pretty good stuff. You know what's coming up? We're going to have more reports coming from Germany. For everything that happened this past weekend, there has just been breathless exhaustion from our torn staffers who have been working at HobbitCon in Germany this whole weekend, and they've been hanging around with a lot of the great actors and those friendly people that we know and love from the Middle-earth films, the 6 Middle-earth films, and it's very intriguing. We don't have any stories right now because they've just gotten flown back home and got jet-lagged, and they need to rest, the poor dears, and catch up. But we'll have news reports and more exciting news bits from HobbitCon next week on Torn Tuesday. We'll be definitely talking about more of that. So, question from Pete in the chat room. Question from the chat. If Peter Jackson wanted to do another film based on the appendices, would he be allowed to, or would he have to negotiate rights? It's a good question. I was told by some of the cast members that they're separate rights that were negotiated to do Lord of the Rings and Hobbit film stories. And if you wanted to get another bit of material from the license that are from the appendices, there'd have to be another contract and another negotiation. That could be a very fun question to have. We've made good friends with Tolkien Enterprises. They're wonderful people there. Maybe we'll have to talk to them. Maybe next week or in another coming weeks, I could invite those kind people to come and be, live on our little green screen studio and talk with us about those legal realities and those interesting questions. It's really interesting to know. Yes. Okay. So, yeah, and everybody wanted to go to HobbitCon. So did I. Yes, I know. I wanted to go to HobbitCon too. I mean, really, I did. Oh, hey, there's all kinds of business going on. All kinds of business going on in the comic book store. That's going on right out here. Excuse me, there's I'm in a studio that was built here in the main showroom of Meltdown Comics. And I'm telling you, it's just really exciting. There's so much going on tonight, and they have a historical roast. The comedy tonight that they're doing, you know how they do, Comedy Central does a roast of somebody where they do lots of insults and crazy comedy jokes at the expense of a celebrity or an influencer or a person of note. So live on stage, their comedy routine is doing historical roasts of big, well-known historical figures. They've roasted Benjamin Franklin. They've roasted other famous tyrants from the past. Tonight, they're going to roast Leonardo da Vinci. He's going to be in the hot seat, and they're going to be throwing all their comedy jabs at him. Yes. Yeah, you know what? Yeah, it would be cool. I agree, Pete. Going back to our live chatters, it would be great. It could be such a super interesting discussion. I would love to have our good friends. I'm going to have to put the word out, talk to our friends at Tolkien Enterprises. They are very friendly and very erudite, and they know the word of the law. They know how these contracts work. They know how all this business works. And they could maybe shed some light on the most ever-burning question: is there going to be a Hunt for Gollum standalone movie from Warner Brothers and Peter Jackson's design team at Weta? That would be Richard Taylor's and Tanya Rogers' design team. Yeah, Chris and Priscilla. Wow. It's just Chris and Priscilla so far. Yeah, who runs the Tolkien estate? Yep. I wonder if I could... I know he's going to say no, but if I could reach out to Christopher Tolkien with sincerity and with all earnestness, really, in all earnestness, with deep sincerity, I would love to have Christopher Tolkien available to Skype all the way from France. And let's have a real thorough and learned conversation about the legacy of his father and how extraordinary these books are, how people around the world adore his way with verse and his way with languages. And it would be so lovely. And, you know, we would not even have to talk about, you know, the stranger outlying, you know, worlds of fandom that Christopher Tolkien probably would not want to talk about, or maybe any sensitive subjects. We would only want to talk about exactly what Christopher would feel comfortable talking about. Whatever he's cool with, I would be cool with. That would be a really awesome thing to have. I've had more than one Tolkien, you know, in front of my camera, in front of the microphone, to actually have conversations. You know, hey, how you doing, Royd Tolkien? Let's talk about what's going on in Royd Tolkien's life. He's awesome. Love to chat with him. Always love to have a good discussion with him. But I do want to talk with Simon Tolkien and other descendants of the Tolkien clan, and I would appreciate talking to Simon about his authorship, his intriguing John Grisham-style legal thrillers that he's so good at writing. And it would be so great to talk to Christopher Tolkien, or perhaps Priscilla. But I can't imagine that any such a thing, I can't imagine any such invitation would be accepted by Christopher Tolkien, but I would love to thank him for what he's done, everything that he's done. Because if it weren't for Christopher Tolkien, we wouldn't have this wonderful Silmarillion. We wouldn't have these wonderful stories that support the fabric of his father's creation. So critical to have these things. So lovely to have. So, yes, God, it would be so brilliant. Yeah, it would be a different time. It would be a time difference. Yeah, I wonder. Northronner says in the chat, my mind is boggled whenever I stop and think about Christopher being the same person who was a recipient of the Father Christmas letters and who read early excerpts of Lord of the Rings during the war. Yeah, imagine being the son of one of the greatest minds and our favorite author of the 20th century. And being the recipient of his father's learnedness, his great learnedness, must have been a wonderful, wonderful place to be, and to help read early drafts of Lord of the Rings and talk to his father about the storytelling he was crafting. And yeah, Christopher Tolkien, at the end of the day, he's the one who packed up all those, wow, it's like, I don't know how to explain this, all of those boxes and boxes of papers, all those shuffled, confused manuscripts pushed into boxes in the garage that was converted to a writing office for Tolkien. And all those piles of paperwork and all the nonsense he had to go through to try to sort it all out. But you know what he did? He got those things, those precious, one-of-a-kind manuscripts, and he packed them all up, deliriously packed up into the back of an automobile, and drove them all the way across to the south of France, where he could finally go through them and sort through them and put the Silmarillion together, and Unfinished Tales, and the other volumes of the History of Middle-earth series. And even now, even today, published in America for the first time, The Tale of Kullervo. I'm going to pull up the page before my battery is completely dead. I'm going to pull up the page and I'm going to show you guys how cool this is. Here we go. Back to the TheOneRing.net main page. And here it is, TheOneRing.net. And here's our library, and here's our homepage. And here is the main story. And we're going to close the show down pretty soon, but this is it. The Story of Kullervo, published in America today. Wow. A previously unknown work of fantasy. Here it is. Right here, everybody. Get your copy of Kullervo. Here's the lead story on TheOneRing.net. It's right here. Awesome sauce. Available in America now. Yes, that's right. Focoena, the History of Middle-earth series. I have to say, man, without you, Christopher Tolkien, we wouldn't have any of these things. We just wouldn't have any of these things. So who wrote the introduction? Let's see here. It says, here you go. Here's a bit about where the story of Kullervo has been hiding. All right, the manuscript had not been hiding, but neither had it been easily accessible. It is housed with other manuscripts and books and artwork at the Bodleian Library's Tolkien Archive in Oxford, in the United Kingdom. Access to it is restricted and contingent on permission from the Tolkien estate. This particular person, ooh, yes. Oh, it was Verlyn Flieger. It wasn't Christopher Tolkien. It was the editor. Ah, the lovely, lovely Verlyn Flieger. She's awesome. I remember interviewing her once. She got permission from Christopher, Verlyn Flieger, to go into the Bodleian Library and get that manuscript in 2008, when she was working on an article about Tolkien and the Kalevala. But my first look made it clear that this was an important example of Tolkien's early work, his first real try at creating a fictive world, and also a foundation piece in the creation of his Silmarillion mythology. Wow. Awesome. It was Tolkien's earliest example of myth-making, according to Verlyn Flieger. She goes on to say, his earliest effort to create what he called a secondary world, and his first serious try at integrating a world and its language. Kullervo is the prototype for Turin Turambar, Tolkien's epic, tragic hero. Yeah, also retold in The Children of Húrin. And The Children of Húrin is just so fantastic. I love it. Yeah, it's super cool. Yep, an early version, an early herald before it became the story of Turin Turambar and the story of Kullervo. Wow, how about that? We have had such an interesting show. We have had a great and very active chat. I can't believe how active our chat room is. Oh yeah, Elvin Bedsocks, you're right. There's some ugly, ugly elements in The Children of Húrin that are just about on the level of what George R.R. Martin is writing with Jaime and Cersei Lannister, you know? That's right. That's right, twin sister and brother Jaime and Cersei Lannister. doing this incestuous thing. Well, yeah, exactly. It's all about that. Hashtag brotherly love. I know, it's wacky. It's wacky. But yeah, the tale of Kalervo being an early framework of the Turin story. And Turin did not know the big difference, and I don't ever want to get into this argument with a fanboy or a fangirl anywhere, but the big difference between Turin Turambar and Jaime and Cersei Lannister is that they know what they're doing, the brother and sister of Jaime and Cersei. They know exactly what they're doing. In Turin's case, he had no clue who he was even speaking to. He had no clue that there was any possible relation there at all. Anyways. Oh, sorry, Idril. Hey, this has been a really great show. All right. It's been a really great and a very lively chat. You guys, that liveliness that's going on in that chat room, that's not going to go away for very long. They're getting ready to prepare right here in this very studio where I sit. They're getting ready to say farewell to Torn Tuesday. We're closing down the show and really glad that you guys have joined us. Check out on our live main website, TheOneRing.net, and also check out our Facebook timeline. Your chance to vote for the final two contestants, Morgoth or Galadriel. In our March Madness, the very final showdown between the final two teams, they ended up being Galadriel versus Morgoth. You get to vote. So every vote counts, so go over there. If you're living in Wisconsin, in the great state of Wisconsin, go vote before the polls close. They're probably closed already by now. Thank you, everybody. Yes, cursed by Glaurung not to recognize each other. Glaurung was a real SOB. He was one of the worst. Oh my gosh. I can't stand that vile creature. Glaurung is one of the worstest. I mean, what a dragon. What a vile SOB. He's just the worst. Elven bed socks? You're onto something there. Bye-bye, everybody. Thank you again for joining me. You are such a faithful audience. I couldn't ask for anything more. And thank you for joining me as we have this discussion about Numenor, the Atlantis connection. I really enjoyed talking about that. And I can only speculate what we would do here in our real world if someone from Atlantis showed up and tried to crown himself king of us all. I wonder what the hell we would all do in response to something like that. Be very interesting. Very interesting indeed. But now, time is away. Time is done. At least for this week. This week, Torn Tuesday is now over. It is bliss to have you guys with us. And be sure to come back for more surprises and more interesting conversation about the worlds of The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings and The Silmarillion. All these wonderful things created by J.R.R. Tolkien. If you're a fan of Tolkien, you're at TheOneRing.net. You're at the right place. This is the world's largest fan community for Tolkien. Check out our message boards. Check out our lead stories and all the news. We've got more news and coverage coming up because Deej and Green Dragon spent a fantastic weekend at HobbitCon, and they're traipsing the light fantastic. They're going to share some great stories with all of you, so watch for more stories on TheOneRing.net and photos and behind-the-scenes mischief with all the actors from The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings. Juicy fun, really good fun. I'm sure it was a great time at that convention in Germany. I'm envious. I wish I'd been there, Deej and Green Dragon. I'm glad that you lovely ladies had a good time. We'll bring you more news on that next week. And now, before we go, I'm going to give the audience one last grand. You got 3. That's what you got. You got 3. Thanks, everybody. Thank you, and good night. This is Clifford Broadway, signing off. Find me on Twitter, @QuickBeam2000. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram and all that other fun mischief. And when I get a new phone upgrade, I'll install Snapchat and have some fun with that. All right, see you guys later. Have a great night. And we're out.
We're done?
Yes, we're all done. Yeah, we're all done. That's it. Thank you, guys. Yeah, you got 3 grunts. That was worth the price of admission, wasn't it? All right. What a lovely, lovely show today. Very lovely. And